Hello and welcome back to the series. In these open shots, I'm just terraforming the upper city. So in this episode, I'm going to be building the citadel of the city-state, which contains the palace and the ziggurat. As you can see, I realized that I needed more space for this to fit. I wanted to put it in the corner because I want the upper city to also contain the residences of the upper class of the city. In order to achieve this, I am moving the wall outward. Next I am building the ziggurat, or the temple to the city-state's patron god, or goddess. The ziggurat is essentially a series of terraces, with the actual temple on top. I found several sources saying that the terraces were hollow, while a couple said the terraces were actually used as storage for the grain that was collected by priests and the elite as tithes from the common person. Although I'm sure it pains some of you, I'm going to leave the terraces hollow, just to increase the pace of building. In order to cover the ziggurat terraces, I'm using pretty much the same command that I used to fill the rivers and canals of the build. I'm basing this ziggurat heavily on the Ziggurat of Ur, although there will be some improvised differences. The ziggurats were made out of mud brick. However, this meant that every couple of decades, the ziggurat would erode and a new one would have to be built. The Ziggurat of Ur is an example of a restoration of an old ziggurat by a ruler in ancient Mesopotamia. The improvisation I made was the stairs and how they don't properly align like the Ziggurat of Ur's does. This is because I wanted to make the ziggurat taller, to be more impressive, and to be to scale with the normal houses of the lower city. Being the citadel of the city, the royal quarter would also be surrounded by another section of wall, which I have included. Next, I'm building the Palace of the City-State, which I'm basing heavily off of the Palace of the Governors at the City-State of Eshnunna. Midway through starting to build the palace, I decided that I would replace the red sandstone brick I was building with orange terracotta, so as to not use the same material I had created the walls out of. Palaces of ancient Mesopotamia would include a variety of amenities which I will be including in this build. For example, they had 2 or more courtyards for discussing royal and governmental affairs, throne room of course for the ruler, private suites for guests, and also toilets, small religious rooms called cellas, and the palace would also usually be attached to a separate temple that would be different from the ziggurat. However, I'm not including the religious parts of the palace just to save space. In this overhead, as you can see, the throne room is the one with all the stained terracotta, and the 2 rooms on the left and right, the 2 large ones, are the 2 courtyards. As you can see, one is larger than the other, as the smaller one is for discussing more private affairs, while the bigger one is for discussing normal royal and governmental affairs. As you can see in the larger courtyard, I am building the typical Mesopotamian decorative towers, and just to the right of that, I'm building the palace's kitchen and dining room. Now I'm just putting on the roof of the palace. Some sources I ran into claim that the roof of the palace was also used as a space for religious ceremonies, but I was unable to find any more information in that regard. Next episode, I will be building the houses of the upper city as well as the port area. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this episode. If you want, you can leave a comment suggesting what I should build next, and see you in the next video. Peace.